एक मिनट रुक जाओ, रेडी होने दो. चलो ये कर लेते हैं. This could be a great intro.
Hi, I'm Akshay.
Hi, this is Saurabh, and you are listening to the Founder Thesis podcast. We meet some of the most celebrated startup founders in the country.
And we want to learn how to build a unicorn.
Hi, I'm Abhinav Jain. I'm founder and CEO of Shop101 and Dash101.
Here is what happens when you add a dash of entrepreneurship to the magic of technology. You end up with a disruptive business venture, and that is exactly what happened to Abhinav Jain, founder and CEO of Shop101. As a young boy growing up in Kanpur, Abhinav was fascinated with technology and learned to code at the age of 10. His pursuits landed him in the prestigious IIT Kanpur and eventually led him to start his entrepreneurial venture. Here is Abhinav telling Akshay Dutt about his time right after IIT Kanpur and his journey ahead.
So, IIT Kanpur, like from there, where did you go? Like, what happened on around the placement season?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I was this year 2020. Everybody talks about how it's not the best year to be in the job market or to be graduating from college. The year prior, which was similar, was 2009, and that was the year when I graduated, right? So it was a year when jobs were far and few in between, and you had to really struggle. You had to put fight for every single thing, and because you were at an IIT and you were doing well. Of course, it was not that you would not get a job, that nobody would be willing to offer you a job, but basically the question was. Uh, would the job would it be exciting enough for you to do, right? And in parallel that year I wrote the cat, did well, got an admission from IIM Ahmedabad, and I was like, hey, this is something that is exciting, will help me broaden my horizons, and also something that I realized that over the years I had built a lot of skills around technology and actually setting up systems, but wanted to learn better on how to actually build organizations, because building a product versus building an organization are two different skills, right? And took up IMA, went to IMA, did 2 years of MBA, and consulting was something which was very exciting for me, because uh, it was in some ways an extension of the education with smart people, where you work with senior folks, advise them, learn from them, and solve problems that make an impact in the world, right? Make an impact on the company's organization and fundamentally in the world. So joined Bain out of IIM Ahmedabad and spent 4 years at Bain. So again, the 4 years at Bain were uh, again very instructive, because one of the things that I realized is the best way to make the most out of an consulting experience is to have as diverse an experience as possible. So I would pick projects which were very, very different. So while I was technically part of the office in Bombay, I actually did very few projects that were out being run out of the Bombay office. I would be either in Delhi, Pune, Bangalore, somewhere else in the country doing a project, and projects ranged from, or even in my projects also, or I was in China or in Philippines, right? So my projects ranged from advising private equity clients on what investments to make, to actually helping IT companies, to actually helping an airline turnaround, to working with somebody who manufactures elastics for undergarments, right? From that niche to airline to IT to private equity. So did a very wide variety of projects, and again, an experience that taught me a lot, learned from many different industries, many different people, and of course created a lot of impact in parallel. So that was my journey after IIT, the next few years after graduating from college.
So, what are essentially the skill sets that a consultant brings to the table for a client? Like, is it that you have like a ability to crunch data and based on that make recommendations? Is that what you offer to a client, or I mean, what is it that a good consultant gets to the table?
Yeah, that's a question that I've always asked, and actually the answer did not come to me when I was doing consulting. The answer came to me much afterwards when I was actually running my own company. The value prop became much more clearer, right? So I think at different points in times, consultants bring different perspectives, right? One is the fact that consultants have the ability to be completely detached to the problem. They have not they can come in with a fresh pair of eyes, fresh perspective, and take a very objective approach to the problem and even the solution, which somebody who's part of the organization will find hard to do, right? That's one piece. Second is that uh, I think in the organization, the people who are there, they have a very particular skill set, right? You could be an excellent marketer, you could be an excellent engineer, you could be an excellent person at procuring products or managing categories. But the skill set which the consultants bring is fundamentally, I think, is around structuring the problem and laying it out, and connecting the big picture to the on the ground, which is not really what uh, you know individual leaders are trained on, when they are running functions, especially not not across the board. And that skill set is very important because uh, you will not have that within the team, and when you want to set up a new project, or help with an existing project, uh, sometimes when that skill set doesn't exist, it's just best to have consultants come in. And of course, I think consultants in general are much more suited for larger organizations where the problem becomes even more acute, where you have specialists, people who really specialize in their craft but are not very strong at this general skill of problem solving. So there, I think the value out of a consultant is to bring in that holistic, structured problem solving approach, marry the approaches seen in other industries, and then come up with a solution that can be implemented, in a very objective manner versus having vested sort of interest or parties involved.
So 2015, you moved on from Bain. So what was the thought
Uh,
behind making the move?
I think the thought was, as I described, right, very simple, that, hey, it's time, let's start building. And it's time to build. And of course, it helped that it was the time 2014-15 when a lot of activity was happening in the ecosystem. So that sort of gave me the nudge and the push that it is time. And in general, you know, even within the consulting career, there are moments when you take a look back and take a pause and say, hey, do I want to do this further, or do I want to do something else? And that was that logical time in that journey where I said, okay, now from here on, if I continue, it's onto the partner track, and then it's a few years again of consulting. Do I want to do that, or do I want to go back to technology and start building? And the answer at that point came that, look, this is time, you need to start building. And so that was that. And while I would still recommend an experience in consulting to pretty much everyone, but yeah, I felt that was the time when I needed to start building and go back to technology.
Did you have a problem in mind, or you decided to quit and look for a problem?
So I did have the broad problem in mind. When I quit, I realized that I did want to work in the space of helping entrepreneurs. So that broad problem was there, but the exact solution on how to build out a solution, and sort of what precise problem to crack, that got more that fructified once I had left my job.
Okay. Okay. So tell me about that, the journey of setting up Shop 101, like from quitting Bain to getting Shop 101 off the ground. Like what was that journey like?
Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, so first things, to this question of, did I have the problem before, or did I quit my job before, it was very interesting because when I was sort of toying with this idea, and thinking about, hey, I want to start out, everybody around me said, look, why don't you actually nail down the problem and then quit, and then only leave your job. And I was trying to do that for a couple of weeks, but I realized that that just didn't work because for me at least, it either I would not focus on my job at Bain, which was which was not something that I was used to. Either if I did it, I had to do it well, or I wouldn't be able to give enough time to solving to figuring out what I wanted to do. So while everybody told me, hey, you should figure out the problem and then leave, I basically one day went and put in my papers and came back home and told my wife, "Hey, this is done. I have put in my papers." And I called up my parents later that night. "Hey, I've left my job. I've put in the papers, and now I'm on notice period." Right? And sort of to me, that was my wife was working, and she's been super supportive. So she was like, "Okay, great, let's do it." So my wife was working. She was super supportive, and yeah, but that sort of was the key switch where I said, okay, this is it, right? That now you have to make this work. So that's what. So that was the key moment. And then once you sort of once you've done that, I think then things begin to fall in place because you are yourself running, and then once you start running, you keep gathering momentum, keep getting people, etc. All of those things happen. So even before I'd left, I'd reached out to Aditya, my co-founder, and said, hey, uh, do you want to think about it, etc. And that those conversations were.
How did you know Aditya?
So Aditya I've known so I have two co-founders, Kalpak and Aditya. Aditya I've known from my undergrad days at IIT Kanpur. We did computer science together back in the day. And Aditya had taken a different track. So over the years, he had done a different thing. And Kalpak I had known from my Bain days, did a project together for good 8-9 months early on in 2011 or 12. And I'd known him since then. So he had also left Bain, but he was doing something else. You know, and then the three of us sort of got together and yeah, we started building this.
So both of them came on at the same time, or like all three of you together, like brainstormed and came up with the idea?
Yeah, so Aditya and I came together early on. Kalpak joined us. So Kalpak was actually running his family business. So he joined us a year or so into our journey. So he joined us later. But yeah.
What was it that you conceptualized with Aditya? Like,
Correct. So when we looked around us, yeah. So Aditya had grown up in Gwalior and different parts of Madhya Pradesh, again small towns, and I had grown up like we discussed in different parts of UP. One of the things we realized is that India is fundamentally a country of entrepreneurs. As kids, we would always buy from these gutsy businessmen and entrepreneurs across the spectrum. But when we looked at sort of the technological revolution that was happening around us, right, and we were here in Bombay and we were looking at the massive change that was happening, very little was being built for this massive entrepreneurial class in the country, right? So even if I were to look at a Flipkart or a Snapdeal, which were trying to build marketplaces, while on the consumer side they were at least providing good access to the consumers, on the business side it was still heavily concentrated, right? Very few businesses would get traffic, etc. And not much was being built. And we said, hey, how do we democratize entrepreneurship? How do we democratize access through technology? And that was the core problem we started with. And we said, look, social commerce is great because social helps you democratize the access, and commerce is the layer which we build, which we are good at. We understand technology. And why don't we bring this together and build a new model where we are able to leverage social media and democratize access for these entrepreneurs. So that was at the crux of it, what we discussed, and we said, okay, let's start building. And then of course, as you keep building, you keep going, and then different things keep happening.
so like, give me more like a product view that you conceptualized. Like, what was the product you conceptualized for social
Yeah.
commerce?
Yeah. So the our first product was actually different. So while it was called Shop101, it was slightly different in avatar from what it is today, right? So initially we said, look, our app will be such that it will help you set up an online shop uh, from a mobile phone at no cost, right? It will actually be a zero cost, and it will help you set up an online shop on mobile phone, and it will come integrated with logistics, payments, etc., whatever you need, right? So you could just download the app and you could
So something like a Shopify.
something like a Shopify for India with no payment, like with no subscription fees required, and ready to go, all plug and play, right? So you could like literally Akshay could set up a shop, shop101.com/Akshay shop, and it would go live instantly, right? And it would have all logistics, COD, etc., all ready to go, and of course, very seamlessly plugged into the social networks, whether it was Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and at that time, Instagram and Instagram commerce in India was on the rise. So with that, we started growing very well, right? In fact, our first, I still remember 4th of February 2016. Uh, till that time, we were signing up, 3-4 new sellers a day, getting 3-4 orders a day. Initial traffic. This one seller, he had come to us and met us, and he sort of basically he just wanted to make sure that we were not frauds because money would be flowing through us. So he just wanted to make sure of that, right? And he came and met us, and then he set up his shop on our platform and put out the link at 8:30. And I was in office looking at the data, and suddenly I see that uh, we have within the next 30 minutes we have 12 new signups and we have 10 orders, right? And that was the moment which told us, hey, this works. Social commerce as a concept works. And we are here because this will not only drive transactions but will also help us drive growth. So and that's how we started. It started growing beautifully. Then over the next year
What was your monetization for that? Like you were not charging any subscription fees.
Correct. So at that point in time, the monetization was through services that you would use. So if you were using logistics, you would pay us. If you were using payment gateway, you would pay us. So we would have a markup, right? So you would pay for things that you used, and that meant that the sellers were happy because they only had to pay when they were actually making money. And for us, it meant that we didn't have any, people could get onboarded very quickly. But once they started making money, we also started making money. So which was great. Our incentives were aligned in that sense, right? And money was flowing through us, so we had no issue. So that was great. Then over a period of time, we realized over the next year or so that another fundamental shift was happening in the country.
You said that it was integrated with social. What did that mean? Like a seller could click on a button to post something on Instagram with a link to buy the product. Like, is that what it meant? Like he could upload a photo on Shop101 and
Correct. So that meant that we've done a bunch of different things actually. So for each of the things, so for instance, when you created a store on Shop101, it would actually ask you to log into your Facebook, and it would put in the link onto your Facebook page. So it would automatically be linked. When Facebook Messenger launched, we would help you set up an auto reply on Facebook Messenger, right? So somebody pinged you, it would auto reply, hey, here is my store. On it would help you set up it would help you share very easily on WhatsApp itself, right? And similarly on Instagram, you could set up an auto sync that whatever images that you uploaded onto Instagram would come into your Shop101 store. So that meant that whatever products you were putting there automatically came here and you could make them live. So if somebody clicked on the link in your bio, they would see all the products that were there. So did all of that, and which meant that whichever channel you were using, you would be able to direct traffic to your Shop101 store very easily and actually drive transactions. So yeah, so that's what we.
the early adopters were what kind of businesses?
Yeah, so the correct. So the early adopters were typically young people, age group of 18 to 30, themselves who were trying to hustle and would sell fashion and accessories as their predominant thing, right? So it could be some dresses, could be jewelry, could be some fashion accessories, could be shoes, and a little bit of decorative items and home decor items as well, right? So that was the initial set that we saw. Basically,
And how were you acquiring them? Like,
so it was very interesting, right? Because as soon as people put out the link to a Shop101 store on their Insta page, not only did their consumers see, other people in their community, their friends, other designers, other Instagrammers would see the link, and they would download the app, and sort of the cycle would start all over again. So it was a beautiful cycle where we didn't have to pay per se for acquisition, but as we kept going, more and more people just automatically started signing up. Of course, we would also do things to boost that rate, where we would identify who were the top sellers on Instagram, and if they were not already on our platform, we would call them up and say, hey, here's a fantastic app, why don't you use it? Look, so many people are already using it. It totally makes sense for you to use it. So it would do all of those hacks, but fundamentally people would look at other sellers and then join the platform.
How the landscape changed over a year, and about the pivot.
As this was growing, this was great. The other change that was happening in parallel was that internet was becoming much more ubiquitous in India, right? Geo was launching. People fundamentally wanted smartphones were becoming cheaper, and people were very keen on getting access to the internet. So as that was happening, we realized that another set of so to say entrepreneurs were opening up in parallel, which was people who wanted to be entrepreneurs but weren't, right? And the core access of technology and internet was solved for them, but what was not solved was the fact that Indian society is the way it is, that women will face a certain issue. People are not are having, while they might have all the intent to be an entrepreneur, but still very conservative. Access to capital is restricted. All of those challenges that we saw, and we saw that all those challenges had one underlying root cause, which was the fact that while people wanted to be entrepreneurs and we had solved the entire technology bit, the fulfillment bit, the payment bit, all of that, what we hadn't solved for was the fact that these this uh, people who wanted to be entrepreneurs didn't have access to products, couldn't keep inventory, right? Hadn't figured out their supply chain. And we said, what if we solve that problem, because we have all the paraphernalia to be able to do that? How would that work? And
But I mean, was this like a brainstorming exercise, or did you actually have customers coming and telling you?
so it was actually very interesting. It was neither. It was data which showed us that. So we saw that there was this one. It started by this. It was this one store in North. It was this one customer in Northeast who would order from this seller in Bombay very often. And we saw that same customer, same product transaction being repeated very often, and we were very curious as to what's happening, because early days you want to figure out what are the trends and what's happening. And we realized, and once he spoke to this seller in Bombay, he said, oh, that customer in Guwahati is actually my reseller. So we were then intrigued, okay, what's happening? So he said, look, he's somebody who wants to do his business, but he does not have access to products there. So he orders on my store. Whenever he gets an order locally, I ship it to him and then he delivers, right? And that's how the business works. We were like, wow. And then when we spoke to that guy, we understood that, look, there is this is already happening, whether whether we solve it at scale or not, but this is something that's already happening. And then we realized that this could actually mean that you unlock entrepreneurship for a much wider audience, right? And that's when we sort of got into it with full zeal on building out the supply side of things, on the supply chain. And uh, while uh, we built out, we got a few suppliers on board fairly quickly, and we were able to do that. The challenge we faced is that our initial thesis of how just the product should look like, that didn't work. People were not able to figure out what the supply is, how to start selling, etc. And then we did another overdo of our product, where we changed to like a full feed based approach, where the discovery of products for these resellers became much simpler. And then that just took off, right? That just meant that pretty much we had unlocked, anybody could be a reseller without any investment, without any effort, and without even any real prerequisite skill set, right? All you needed to do was figure out what would work in your community, in your network, curate those products and share, and that's it. And we would take care of everything. We would take care of the logistics, infrastructure, cash and delivery services, all of that, and make sure everybody got their share of money, etc. So it became very, very simple, and that was that just took off like crazy. So yeah, so that's the avatar you find Shop101 in today.
So building a supply is like no longer a tech problem. I mean, to then it means that finding vendors who have good quality products, having some sort of quality control over products, because your sellers would not want to sell something which gets a bad review from a customer or things like that. So then how did you solve this problem of building a supply? Like, I mean, Flipkart and Amazon have like spent years and years to solve that problem. So
Absolutely fair, yeah. So the way we look at it is it's a tech plus sourcing problem. The reason why I say that is that we underwent uh, a transformation in that sense, that where we built out the entire sourcing and supply side team, right? We actually got in people who had built these categories before, set up the paraphernalia, and set up the infrastructure, both not physical per se, but technology and the people infrastructure to actually be sourcing these products, right? And to your question on actual quality and trust, then we built out very robust tech-led processes which ensured that we are able to deliver the quality and trust. So, as an example, when we set up the entire sourcing piece, we said some of the calls we took is that for a supplier to be onboarded onto our platform, we would actually go and vet them like even before they could be onboarded. So we vet all suppliers who come onto our platform, right? And it can be a very simple thing that, okay, what's your business history, what's your investment that you've gone in, what's your market cred, etc. Right? And you run those checks. So that's just pre-onboarding itself. We have a very strong quality control criteria. Then even once the person is onboarded and the products have been listed, our the tech piece kicks in, where on one side the customers and the resellers are actually uploading reviews and real products, real images of the products onto the platform. So it is very clear that the product that was delivered, how different or similar is it to the product that was promised, and what's the rating and review. And basis that, we run a very stringent check on which supplier should continue, how much of visibility every supplier should get, and the better your ratings are, the more visibility you will get. And of course, below a threshold, you will be asked to leave the platform. So that entire thought process made sure that we were able to scale the supply side without having to build a very very large team. I would say that we've been able to do that in a very frugal way, in the way we've built our team and built the product to actually manage the entire fulfillment and on sourcing and onboarding of products.
so how do you handle the warehousing and fulfillment? Like, you have partners who take care of that, or like?
Yeah, so what we've done is there are seven large or eight large logistics players in the country, and we have basically tied up with all of them. We follow a just-in-time inventory model, so we don't warehouse anything. We just make sure that the inventory on the platform is marked accurately by the suppliers, and then the product is picked up in real time from the supplier, delivered to the end consumer, and in case there is a return, it is returned back to the supplier. So we don't hold inventory anywhere in the chain. It's picked up from the supplier, delivered to the end consumer, or returned back to the supplier.
Okay, okay. So when you decided to build the supply, like, what categories did you start with, and how did that
So I
progress?
think the categories themselves were picked. The initial categories that I spoke about, I think those were the categories which are fundamentally suited to social commerce, except for the fact that our ethnic fashion wear became a much larger part. Other than that, fundamentally the categories remain the same. It was fashion, apparel, footwear, accessories, home decor, kitchen items, and beauty personal care, right? And we just stuck to that set of products, and we stayed away uh, very actively from electronics and smartphones, where you cannot there is no real value to a reseller getting in general, and there is no money to be made, right? So we stayed away from those.
And these were like branded products, like, say, if you have kitchenware, then was it like a prestige and
So
all that, or was it like?
see, so typically the value of the reselling model is in unbranded long tail items. Basically, these are unstructured categories and unbranded products. Because the thing is that in India, this is a play which is going to, as I was explaining, we are democratizing it for the billion people, for people across the country. So tier 2, tier 3, it's not as much about looking at brands, but it's a lot about being value for money. being very price effective. So the value of the model is this, that are you able to connect or match the right product to the right consumer at the right price, right? And which is where this entire thing around how we curate our supply, how then the resellers are able to curate their collection for their end consumers, and the trust on the reseller comes in. So long story short, we provide discovery to long tail products, and that's our strength. So typically these are unbranded items and products which you actually see in everyday consumption in the country.
For the resellers who are on the platform, then when they like a product and they think they can sell it, then how does it happen? Like, with they first add it to their store or their shop front, and then they advertise it. Like, what is the flow that happens there?
So typically resellers will post it on a Facebook or an Instagram or a share chat or a TikTok, wherever they have to post it, right? And the way it works is that they don't. Every reseller will curate a certain set of products that they believe will work, right? And usually it's not you. You typically don't share like just a single product. You will share a few products, right? And you will share that with your customers, and then they will come back. Hey, I like this. And the beauty is that it has the possibility of a conversation. Unlike any other platform, any other commerce platform, here the consumer will say, hey, I like this sari, but do you have something which is a little more simpler, or do you have something which is a little more cheaper, or this sari works well for a birthday party, but guess what, I'm looking for something which I can wear to office tomorrow, right? So then that conversation happens. The reseller has the ability to curate more products, showcase the right product, and then close the transaction, right? And the reseller also has the ability.
So there's like a chat interface.
Yeah, there's like a chat interface, and that chat interface is not even on our platform. It's different. It's so interesting how different people have adopted the model. The most common, of course, is WhatsApp, given it's people leverage that. But we've found stories like, in terms of the interface. uh, just to give you an example, we went and met this lady in Chennai, and we were wondering how does she do business, and we keep doing these visits to our resellers place and understanding what are they doing. So this is a lady, 50 years old plus. Her kids are doing her own thing. So we asked her, how do you sell? And in fact, she couldn't speak English. So my colleague was talking to her in Tamil, and I was asking, how do you do this? So she said, okay, hold on. She went in, she got out like a set of papers on a clipboard, and we were like, what is this? So and this is a clipboard. If you recall, when you used to write exams as kids, you would have that on which you could just stack a sheet of paper and take. So she then explained, I have a group of people who I meet in church. So what I do is I will send them photos on WhatsApp. And then, because we can't really type on WhatsApp and we can't communicate. So when I go to the church, they will show me the photo, and I will note down the product code and the price that I promised them, and come back. And then later in the night, I will look at my set of papers that I got, and then I will punch the orders on the app, and then they will get delivered. Our mind was blown, right? What do you call this? This is technology, person to person selling. It's a combination.
So the sellers typically punch in the orders themselves, or like they give a link to a customer and the customer orders. Like what is the more common behavior?
So both modes exist, but typically it's the seller who punches the order, right? Because that's the beauty, that you have the ability to discuss, negotiate, suggest more products, negotiate the price. All of that is possible. So and
And
plus,
the seller can put the address of the customer for delivery there, so
oh,
it
absolutely
directly goes to the.
correct.
Okay, and the
Correct.
cash there is picked up by the logistics partner. So essentially, like this is adding a layer of technology to the traditional way in which small entrepreneurs have been selling for so many years.
Correct, correct, correct. Absolutely. So and it's a layer of technology which opens up a full world of products to them. See, in the traditional way, if a small entrepreneur wanted to do business, they would have to stock some products, which could be 10, 20, 50, depending on the range that they could stock or afford. Now here, the stock is basically unlimited, right? You have unlimited SKUs that you want, which means your ability to sell is much stronger. The customer is happy because the reseller is no longer is not trying to just give any product that they have. They're truly trying to understand what the customer wants, and solve for the customer. So it makes a lot of sense for both parties in this case, because the reseller is able to make much more money. The customer gets what they want. And imagine this, for a customer, it's almost like a personalized shopper that they get, and they get to browse products of their choice at home. So it's like, uh, the behavior in which people used to say, "Chalo, let's go to the market," that has come to their phones now, and and even that even that collection is curated for them. So it's a win-win for everybody.
So, don't sellers feel insecure that if I tell a customer visit my store on Shop 101, then they will also see all the other stores there?
Yeah.
And
So we've basically, the stores that we provide are on a different domain name, which is an independent domain name, and so there is no link really to Shop 101, or the consumers don't even know that the seller is getting the products from Shop 101. So the reseller is very safe and assured. In fact, to that point, we host these on our other product, which is called Dash 101, which is exactly like a full solution to create web stores, etc. So the consumer doesn't know whether the seller is uploading the products themselves or getting it from somewhere else.
Dash 101 is the original business that you started
Yes.
off a shopfront.
Okay, switching gears. So, come 2020, we realized that the original shopfront piece, and the fact that we are providing logistics as a service, it's now becoming, that need is very, very high, right? And while we always continue to offer that solution under the original brand, but it's hard to discover two different parts of a solution, especially when you talk about one a lot more. So we said, okay, why don't we build this out as a full solution and under a new brand name, and we launched it under Dash 101. So the Dash 101 is a full stack e-commerce platform where you can set up an online store and start a business, and you can scale it with world class logistics, which is seamlessly integrated payments, uh, and it just works, right? And we are very happy if you also want to use just one part of a service. So for instance, maybe you already have a website on, like we discussed, say Shopify. You can just use the logistics part of our ecosystem, and you will be able to very seamlessly run it. And it's, we have all the optimizations built into our service, so we will help you understand which orders have a higher probability of returns, which you should fulfill or not, etc. So we've built all of that thought and our expertise into the product itself. So the web store is optimized for conversions. The logistics service we will help you understand uh, which orders are most likely to be profitable, or which orders are most likely to be returned. So we will help you do that.
Okay. So, like in logistics, you would also have intelligence around like which pin codes have like fraud
Oh,
possibilities or stuff
absolutely,
like that.
absolutely. So
And
in fact, we've gone beyond just pin code. We will actually tell you that on an order level. So we will tell you on a pin code pair level which shipping partner to use, which is the best bet for this set of pick up and drop pin codes. And we would also tell you on an order level what is, if you should be shipping this order or not. Like if it's a high probability of a return order or what. So we will tell you.
as in, that is based on the product or the location.
So that is based actually on both. So we bake it and bake both, and also it is also based on the way you've input the address into the platform. Because as you can imagine, in India, a lot of times people will also write things like bus stop pe aake call me from the bus stop, and that's just the address. And then what have you got, right? So so it's a very unique market where we operate.
When does the seller get the money?
Yeah. So in terms of if it's a reselling order where you've taken the products from us, we have a standard 5-day return window. So after the money has been collected from the end consumer, we wait for 5 days. In the 5 days, if the consumer has any issue, they can raise a return request. We will pick up the product back and refund the money. And if not, if once the 5-day window has elapsed, we will basically transfer the money to the seller, to their bank account.
Like his margin.
Yeah, his share of it to his or her bank account, and the supplier's share to the supplier's bank.
So if there is a return, then whose cost is that? Like, does the seller bear the cost, or like who bears that
So
cost?
if there is a return, no. So to the reseller, we keep it very simple. We say, hey, for you, we have no cost as long as you are doing business in good faith, and it's not like uh, every product that you get you are returning. you're doing business in good faith, you have no cost. We've given you full, all inclusive cost in upfront itself, and you can just go and do your business, and that's what we do. So that cost is borne by us, and of course there's a cost structure that we have with the supplier as well. So depending on what the understanding with the supplier is, the supplier could be paying it, but that's the part. So to the reseller, we've kept it very, very simple, that we will keep it very simple, and our cost structure between the supplier and Shop101, we will manage the entire part.
So, what is your current customer acquisition strategy? So, initially, when you started, at that time, people were going to Shop 101, and therefore there was an inbuilt advertising anytime someone was selling.
Yeah.
But now that they are going to a different domain,
Yeah.
so what is your current strategy to acquire more resellers?
Now the strategy is very is slightly different, but it's still very, very interesting, and very unique in its own way. So now the strategy is a lot around reaching out to people ourselves, which is whether through digital or paid marketing, or through influencers, or through referral programs. But something very interesting happens when we do this marketing today, right? Fundamentally, when a typical e-commerce platform markets, they say, hey, I am selling this product, buy this from me, right? And that's the way to reach out to to a new consumer, and it has its associated cost, whatever the customer acquisition cost you get. Now when we market, we say, hey, here is a way to change your life, here is a way to make money, right? So as much as we are trying to reach out to these resellers, people are fundamentally looking for ways to make money. So in fact, if you look at my Google Play Store listing, it will talk about earn money from home, work from home jobs, because that's what people are searching for. And which basically means that we can, while we are trying to do all of these things to reach out, people themselves are looking for us, and which means that we can acquire these resellers actually at a lower cost of acquisition than even the customer acquisition cost of other platforms. So if other platforms acquire a customer at say 500 to 1000 rupees, we can do that at a couple of hundred rupees, or even at 100 rupees, right? Which is an order of magnitude lower. And then every reseller is getting their own network of consumers, so which means that the actual cost of reaching out to one consumer is significantly lower than any of the traditional platforms, and which is what explains why we've been able to ramp up and build out our network in tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, and even in smaller towns at a very fast.
Initially, like, did you self fund it? Like, when did you look for external funding?
So yeah, it was very interesting. Like I said, that when we were starting out, it was once you sort of decide that you have to do it, then things start falling in motion. And in parallel, so as we were sort of laying out the initial problem, etc., I was talking about the problem to my friends, and one of my friends works for a fund called VY Capital, and he said, "Look, this problem looks interesting. We've already been looking at companies in this space, and if you are going to do it, why not? We would love to partner, and let's chat some more." And that happened. And so while we were launching our initial product, this conversation also fructified in parallel. And yeah, so we got funding very early in the
And after that, like, how many additional, what was the funding you raised in that round, and then how much did you raise subsequently? Like, what was that journey like?
That initial funding was such that it was more of a so the first check was for $1 million, and then it was that, let's see how it goes, and we can fund you up to a few more $1 million, and we can do that. But the first check was that. And then subsequently, of course, over a period of time, today we've raised about $22 million in total. And from that round, we raised a Series A, Series B, Series C. So that's how we've raised. So we've raised $22 million in total. And yeah, that journey, the thing about funding is, it's almost like it's fuel to run the race, but you have to just you have to still build on from there, right? So yeah, that's at least our philosophy in terms of how we look at capital and
So is fundraise like a full-time activity for one of the founders? Like, that is it like you get a lot of inbound interest and it's easy to do, or is it like there is constantly work happening on that front also in parallel to building the product and
so
acquiring
so I
customers?
think
Like,
it's a very interesting thing. So the way I look at it is, I think it is a full-time thing. Like it's on full-time. When you're not actively fundraising, maybe it takes 20% of your time, and when you are actively fundraising for one of the founders, it does take up 60 to 80% of your time, right? So it is, at least at the time when a round is open and you're actively raising, at that point in time, it does take up a significant part of the bandwidth for one of the founders, for sure.
so how did you develop the skills to fundraise? I mean, that itself is like a skill that a lot of founders are unable to succeed because they lack that skill. So, how did you develop the skill between the three of you?
I think the only way to develop the skill of fundraising is just like a sales skill, which is just do it, right? You have to just, I think half of it is just about showing up and being at it every day, every meeting, and so on. And the other half, I think, is learning from every meeting. So it would be a shame if your first pitch is as good or as bad as your last pitch. Ideally, uh, in if in a set of, say, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or whatever time frame you have, say 10, 15 meetings, your 15th meeting should be significantly better from your first one. And that's because you are the same person, your business is still the same, but you know what answers to expect. You have all the data in the tip. You know what questions to anticipate, and how to guide the conversation, and how to make sure that your strengths are being highlighted. So I think that's just the skill set to continuously keep improving. And if you do that, I think, uh, and of course, fundamentally, if you've built something that is valuable, that makes sense, then you know people will be willing to fund you. See, at the end of the day, an investor is looking to answer just one very simple question: can I trust this guy, and can I trust this team to deliver what they're saying, right? And you have to figure out, how do you help people trust you? That's it. uh, and there are many components to it. Is the market big enough? Is the opportunity size big enough? Is the team great? What have you executed in the past? And how do you communicate all of that to deliver that trust? So I think at the end of the day, you're trying to just make sure that the person can trust you with the money, and that's you know pretty much what it is.
What works in fundraising? Like, does cold calling work, or like, did you get benefit from the alumni networks of your two institutions? Like, typically speaking, like, what are the things that
So I
worked?
think cold calling is if you're cold calling, you are setting yourself up for a harder path than you should. Uh, if you like you said, the alumni network, and even just the founder network, or even just the fact that you've been in this space, you will be able to find a connect to pretty much all investors very quickly, or at least with a little bit of hard work, right? And that always helps, where at least you are going in with some connect to the investor. Of course, a cold call is better than no call at all. So of course, if you don't know somebody, absolutely, by all means, cold call them. Otherwise, I you know uh, uh, try and figure out a connect. And it could even be, you met one investor and they said, hey, I we this is something which is not for us for whatever XYZ reason, but I think this could be interesting for another investor. Then just ask them for that intro. Hey, can you make that quick intro? Because even if that is happening, that means that somebody else is saying, hey, I looked at them, it makes a lot of sense for you, why don't you take a look as well, right? And even that intro works. So the point is that, can you get that connect whichever way possible?
So, what kind of numbers are you seeing on the platform right now?
Yeah, so what's interesting is we see lakhs of active resellers, and when I say active resellers, people who do transactions on the platform right now. And which goes on to the fact that we've solved for a problem which exists, which is a very widespread problem, right? People looking to make money, and people looking to earn also respect in some ways. So and which is reflective in the fact that lakhs of people want to do this, and are actually able to transact on the platform. So so that's where we are, and then these lakhs of people are actually able to reach at the last count we checked that we were able to reach about few million end consumers, right, which is about tens of lakhs of end consumers. So so clearly the problem is you know a massive problem to solve, plus also the fact that these resellers are actually able to reach a very wide base of people at basically no significant cost to them. So the network is being built very, very rapidly.
So your end customer acquisition cost is not there basically.
Yeah,
Your
exactly.
cost is only to acquire
Correct.
resellers.
Correct.
Got
Correct.
it. So how much do you earn on an average per reseller?
Except for the reseller, the top guys can earn more than a lakh, right, a month. And of course, this is the top guys I'm talking about. But if you hustle, you can definitely earn, um, uh, you know, uh, like the top 5 to 10% would be earning in thousands per month, right? And those are people who are uh, at it, are willing to hustle, willing to put in the time and effort, are provide superior customer service to their end consumers, and their end consumers like to talk to them. So that, so it's truly up to the reseller on how large can they become, because even in the Diwali season itself, we had run like a Lakpati offer, and apparently the winner is getting, other than the lakh rupees of prize that she would get from us, she would have earned a lakh rupees during the Diwali season just from her sales, right? So her annual income, if you were to see, would be a lot. So I think the platform is truly democratic in the sense that it does not differentiate between who you are, where you come from, what you have done before. All that matters is what are you willing to put in today? What is the hustle that you're willing to put in today? What is the effort? And we are there to support everybody. So I think the earning totally depends on how the resellers are putting in the effort. Now, what's even more interesting is the way we've built the platform. Not only does the reseller make money, actually we also make money. So one of the very different things that we have done fundamentally as a company is to make sure that is to build a sustainable business. So we are very proud to say that we will be one of the very few commerce companies in India who actually make a contribution margin after accounting for all discounts, for all bonuses, incentives, and marketing costs, right? So people talk about how they make money on a unit level. We of course do that, but we also make money on a economics on a after accounting for all our marketing discounts, bonus, incentives, etc. And which is very powerful, because what that means is that, look, uh, you are able to actually build a business which is fundamentally sustainable, and both for the reseller as well as for the platform. And uh, and that's been our goal ever since, to make sure that we build it in a manner that's sustainable for everybody.
So what has been the impact of COVID for you?
So COVID was, the month of March and April was very tricky, because at that point in time, e-commerce was fully on pause in India, pretty much, other than the essential goods. And uh, so that meant that our business was pretty much on pause. We did use that time to do bunch of other things, but we had to build back from there. Having said that, while we had to build back our business from pretty much being on pause for a month or so, we used that time very well. One of the things that we did was to experiment during that time with digital products, right? And we tried a bunch of things like mobile payments, recharges, education, courses, etc. And we built our learnings there, and we figured out what can work through the model right now and what can work maybe at a later stage, right? And that was very instructive to, in that sense,
So
to try that.
This like mobile payment recharges, like, so your seller would be able to recharge phones for her customer
Correct,
base.
correct. That's right. That's right. And we were trying to see, how that works and what are the challenges that we face, and we leverage that time. So that was one set of things that we did. The other thing that we did during that time was to also put a focus on you know becoming a profitable and sustainable business much faster, right? So we spend that time building these the models that I was speaking about earlier, the data models where we can recommend which orders are fraud, or which orders will be delivered, what shipping partners to use. So we spent a lot of time building those our inherent core infrastructure, core IP during that time, and that helped us very well, because when as we were ramping up, even though sort of the lockdowns did not come off in one go, it was in patches, in bits and pieces, with a lot of local on the ground challenges. But because we had that infrastructure in place already, it meant that as we were opening the business back, we were not losing money even at that time. So we were able to come back very strongly, and today, we are at that stage where business is continuing to grow back, and we are actually our the margin is also improving and growing, because we took that time and spent that time in building the underlying infrastructure.
What I mean, and in terms of your month on month top line, has that like gone back to pre-COVID level now?
In certain categories, it's beaten pre-COVID levels. In certain categories, it is yet to get there. So for instance, categories like home decor and beauty, etc., there at least in these two categories specifically, our top line is actually much higher than before. But say in other categories like women's ethnic wear, or apparel, etc., there in apparels, there the top line is yet to sort of meet the pre-COVID levels. So it's a mix. In certain cases, we
Overall, like
overall it is getting there. It is close to there, yet to touch the peak point.
so the categories again would reflect like a new normal, like more work from home, so people wouldn't buy
Exactly.
clothes to wear out.
Correct, correct, correct. And which is interesting that as festive season sort of rolls in, that will also change, and because now we will also see a wedding season which will come in now, given the last few months I've seen very few weddings. So now apparels and clothes will also start sell a lot more, because also along with winter wear, which also anyways is.
What is your headcount like?
So we have about 250 to 300 people right now.
And you're like in Mumbai,
We
all these people are in Mumbai.
Pretty much, but because so they are all in Mumbai, but because we are all working from home, you could be working from pretty much anywhere in the country right now. So a lot of the people who don't originally hail from Bombay are working from different parts of the country, and that's fine, because till the time we don't go back to office, I think it's just best that everybody is comfortable. And
The split of these 250 people, like in functionally, like
yeah, so a significant part of this about would be close to about 100 people would be in our sourcing and category management team, right? Which is just running the actual part of getting new products on board. Then there is another set is around the logistics, operations, call center support, right? That would be another close to about 75 odd people. And then there is the other part is the entire technology, product, data science, design team, which is another odd 70, 75 people.
but I guess your customer service need, like, per customer basis would be lesser, no? Because in a way your resellers would do customer service.
Absolutely, absolutely. So our customer service is basically to the reseller, is to resolve the issues for the reseller so that they can, make sure that they are able to
What do
provide a
you
fantastic experience to their end
see as,
consumers.
like, say a 5-year roadmap for Shop 101?
The way we see it is, look, we are here to democratize entrepreneurship and to make sure that we are able to create and grow entrepreneurs in the country, right? 5 years down the line, the way we see Shop 101 and even Dash 101 together, right, is the fact that if anybody wants to open a new business, all they need to do is plug into our ecosystem and they get everything here, right? Whether it's an online shop, whether it's the logistics, whether it's the payments infrastructure, or even access to the supply chain, all of that exists here. right? All you need to do is just open a shop and do your magic on top of that, and all the underlying infrastructure is just here for you.
Your
Structure, and I'm good to
closest
go.
competitor would, I guess, be someone like a Mishu.
So our closest competitor, if you were to just look at the supply chain side, would be Misho. But if I were to look at this entire infrastructure that we've built, where you have a full online shop, the ability to run your logistics, payments, take supply from us, uh, that as a full platform that we've built, actually nobody has done that before, right? Either people have come at it from saying, hey, I want to build an online shop, or I want to provide payment service, or I am a logistics player, or I am a supply provider. But somebody building it together into an infrastructure that entrepreneurs can just use off the shelf, that really hasn't been done before.
So Mishu doesn't provide the supply, or
So
like what
Misho
are the
provides
things
the
that Mishu
supply,
doesn't
but
do?
it's just you have the supply, you can post it on Instagram, Facebook, etc. But you don't have a web store. You cannot set up a shop in that sense, right? And imagine if you want to run a mixed model where maybe you are making jewelry at home and you take saris from my supply. You really can't run that.
But like Mishu has like raised a like significantly higher amount of funding. So is that like a something you see as like your biggest threat out there, or like what are the things you see as threats?
See, I think the biggest threat fundamentally that I think is, I feel, is the mindset of people which doesn't want to change, right? That's the biggest challenge I've faced when we sort of have built the solution. I mean, the question to ask today is that, why are there only lakhs of people on my platform? Why is the number not in crores, when we know for a fact that there are many more people who would be benefiting from such a product, right? So to me, that mindset of how do I drive change, or mindset of not wanting change, I think is the biggest challenge. And that's what we actively try and, from our side, make the product extremely simple. Try and find voices which will help convince people that, it's extremely simple and trustworthy to do, and you can get started. And that's the challenge that we work against predominantly, that how do you make sure that the product is so simple that there is really no friction or really no barrier for somebody to get started on the app. And because if you do that and you have a sustainable business model, then it doesn't matter what else is happening in the world, right? Then you've solved both sides of the problem. You've made it easy for people. You've made it easy and simple for people to adopt, and you've made a business model which actually works for everybody.
So that was Abhinav talking about setting up Shop 101. If you would like to know how reselling works or are looking to sell your products online, log on to shop101.com.
You like the Founder Thesis podcast? Then do check out our other shows on subjects like marketing, technology, career advice, books, and drama. Visit thepodium.in, that is thepodium.in, for a complete list of all our shows.